The American presidency is often judged by how a leader handles a national crisis. While some are remembered for growth and stability, others are criticized for decisions that damaged public trust or failed to address threats to the country's survival. We begin with the leaders whose actions preceded the nation's greatest existential threat. James Buchanan served in the years immediately before the Civil War. He is frequently criticized for failing to take decisive action as the country began to break apart over the issues of slavery and secession. His administration is remembered for allowing a local crisis to expand into a national one. Andrew Johnson followed Abraham Lincoln and faced the challenge of Reconstruction. He is often evaluated by his active resistance to civil rights protections for formerly enslaved people, which led to a historic period of political gridlock and conflict with Congress. Franklin Pierce supported the Kansas-Nebraska Act, a policy that effectively ended the Missouri Compromise. This decision intensified violent sectional divisions in the territories and is cited by historians as a primary factor that moved the United States toward war. These three presidencies demonstrate how a leader's response to internal collapse can shape the long-term stability of the republic. Historical standing can also be damaged by the conduct of those within an administration. Warren G. Harding was personally popular during his term, but the emergence of the Teapot Dome scandal after his death linked his presidency to government corruption and a lack of executive oversight. John Tyler's term was defined by political isolation. After clashing with the party that elected him, he found himself without a governing coalition, leading to a presidency often described as unstable and ineffective. This document details the Fugitive Slave Bill, a central component of the Compromise of 1850. By backing this legislation, Millard Fillmore sought to delay conflict, but the moral and legal weight of the law widened the divide between the North and South. When an administration is defined by internal scandal or a failure to build political support, the institutional strength of the office is often diminished. Economic hardship frequently dictates a president's reputation. Herbert Hoover's limited response to the start of the Great Depression led many Americans to associate his name with the poverty and unemployment of the era, resulting in a landslide defeat in his bid for re-election. Richard Nixon's foreign policy achievements are often viewed through the lens of the Watergate scandal. The resulting investigation and his subsequent resignation led to a measurable decline in public trust toward the federal government that lasted for decades. Jimmy Carter's presidency was defined by a combination of high inflation, domestic energy shortages, and the 444-day Iran hostage crisis. These events contributed to a public perception that his administration was unable to effectively manage challenges at home or abroad. This illustration captures the Panic of 1837, showing crowds gathered outside the Mechanics' Bank. Martin Van Buren took office as this financial crisis began and was criticized for an inability to restore market confidence or prevent widespread bank failures. History shows that when a president is unable to address economic collapse or is caught in an abuse of power, they often lose the public mandate required to lead effectively. Some historical rankings are based on a lack of a track record. William Henry Harrison died just 1 month after his inauguration, leaving almost no policy legacy to evaluate. Zachary Taylor similarly left an incomplete record. A military hero who took office during a period of rising national tension, his sudden death prevented him from finishing his term or seeing his policies through to completion. Ulysses S. Grant's presidency is viewed as a contradiction. While he was a staunch supporter of civil rights during Reconstruction, his administration was frequently undermined by corruption involving his subordinates and political allies. Lyndon B. Johnson's domestic record, including major civil rights and anti-poverty legislation, is often weighed against his escalation of the Vietnam War, a conflict that fractured his support and led him to withdraw from his re-election campaign. Woodrow Wilson led the country during World War I, but his legacy is increasingly debated due to his policies of racial segregation in the federal government and his administration's crackdowns on civil liberties during and after the war. These examples suggest that major domestic or international achievements do not always offset the impact of significant moral or institutional failures. Modern presidencies are often defined by their response to immediate disasters. George W. Bush is frequently criticized for the Iraq War, intelligence failures regarding weapons of mass destruction, and the federal response to Hurricane Katrina. Donald Trump's term is defined by intense polarization. Critics point to 2 impeachments and his challenges to democratic institutions, including the events of January 6th, as central to his place in presidential history. Bill Clinton oversaw a period of significant economic growth and budget surpluses, but his presidency remains linked to personal scandal and the subsequent impeachment proceedings that divided public opinion. In the modern era, policy results are often evaluated alongside the impact of partisan division and highly visible political scandals. This map illustrates the massive territorial expansion achieved under James K. Polk. While he met his administration's goals, the addition of this land intensified the debate over the expansion of slavery, a consequence that would shape the country's path for the next 2 decades. The legacy of Joe Biden is still being formed. Concerns regarding inflation and border policy are currently being weighed against his efforts in infrastructure and international alliances, with his final historical ranking likely to be determined by the long-term results of these policies. The presidencies remembered for failure or controversy illustrate how the office depends on judgment, timing, and the maintenance of public trust. As the long-term consequences of their decisions continue to manifest, their place in the American record remains a subject of ongoing historical study.